Hey everybody, it's Appy Hour, and we are super excited as usual, but we're extra excited because we have Nate from Chronobooks on the show today.
Hey everybody.
Very excited. So we have an exciting topic too today.
I agree. So it's interesting how our own firms, our own lives start impacting topics of the show, because we're just like so many people here who have our own practices and our own experiences. So
yeah,
they're all relevant.
They are all relevant, and we had a great week. We were at Accountex last week, which was really fun, and got to see a lot of our friends there. So that was a lot of fun. There was a lot of learning going on. Jeannie Whitehouse did a ton of sessions. I think she did 4 sessions, and they were amazing. So.
I was able to be in her first session, and it was fantastic. It was really talking about making the data come to life for your clients, and so how to interpret it and have those valuable meetings that we just keep talking about.
Did you know that her book on Kindle she's giving it away free today?
No.
Yes, if you go on out to Amazon, her book, 52 Ways That Even a Nerd Can Be Heard, she's actually giving away copies on Kindle today. Costs you nothing. I actually downloaded it. I'm very excited to read it.
Okay. I'm making that note to myself. So download
Jeannie's book.
52 Ways Even a Nerd Can Be Heard.
Oh, Tiffany says, oh my goodness, boo, not free in Canada. Well, sorry. Sorry, our community friends, it makes me sad. But all right. So so we're excited. We're going to be talking about kind of a heavy subject today, right, Liz?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Heavy, like very serious topic today.
I agree. And so, one of our good buds, Murph, is here, and so he's excited about Chronobooks as well. So I think he's going to be chiming in a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So today's episode is all about safeguarding your data in this digital world that we live in. So we're all using cloud apps. We've all, not all of us, but a lot of us have transitioned over to the cloud, and we're using cloud apps, and we've embraced it. But we do need to safeguard our data. And so this whole episode is about how do we do that? How do we understand what we're signing up for? We're going to talk about how data is stored, who owns the data, and really understanding the services that we're buying and how that relates to our ownership and how we're providing services to our clients. So this is going to be a really, really great episode. I'm excited we're talking about this.
I am too. And I'm going to throw this out there for both of us that we are not attorneys.
Nope, you're not.
We just are like many of you practitioners who have our own unique scenarios where we had to kind of look at these topics for our own practices. And we're sharing with you some of the things that we found in our thinking. So we're sharing this as peers, not as legal professionals.
Yes, we are not offering anyone legal advice. We are giving our own interpretation of what we're reading, with a little question mark at the end of each statement that we say. Because we're not attorneys, and we want to have this discussion because I think it's important. And if you have any issues or questions, not issues, but if any questions about this, then certainly you'd want to reach out to somebody to help you, because that's not us. I don't have a law degree.
No, we just have lots of opinions.
We do. And our opinions are our own.
That's right. So with that being said, who are we?
You can go first this time, Liz. I always go first.
Okay. All right. So I'm Liz Scott. And like I keep saying, I'm like so many of you have, my own practice and partner here in Oklahoma. And we work with small businesses who use QuickBooks. And so with the online world, there's so much need for apps. And so we do a lot of app consulting and e-commerce businesses, connecting all of their apps and understanding it. And then ultimately being able to say, how do you understand your data and how to be able to make business decisions with that data? So that's kind of me in a nutshell. How about you, Heather?
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, today I was working on analyzing a client's workflows to help streamline it. They're doing a lot of manual entry into a bunch of different applications that they use in their business. And so they asked me to take a look and see if I could find some ways to streamline some of that data entry. And that's what I absolutely love to do. So I actually delivered the report today and they were thrilled. So we're going to be implementing some of the things that I recommended to them. So I had a really exciting day today, but I love that. I love helping folks analyze what they're doing, become more efficient, so that they can spend more time doing the things they love to do rather than entering data into a computer, because that's not very much fun.
It's not very much fun. No, it's
yeah,
fun to see people smile and walk away, which is the whole reason to get up in the morning. Agreed.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So that's me. So I have Saturday training and consulting, and that's how I spend my days, and I love it. I was telling Liz today earlier that I love running my business, but it's really easy to get kind of to go into overdrive and work a zillion hours. I mean, we all are entrepreneurs. We own our firms, and so I've kind of pulled back, and I'm starting to remember why I went into this business, and it was really to to spend a little more time with my family. I need to give myself the things that I'm giving to my clients, giving myself some time back. So I took a long walk with Cooper this morning. It was really nice. I enjoyed it.
Those are all great points. That's, we'll have to do an episode where we focus on some of that.
Yeah, good idea.
Work-life balance or whatever you want to call it. But sure. I think that as a whole, I think that we are workaholics. Accountants it's never perfect enough.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So enough about us. I'm going to say, hey, Nate.
Hey, Nate.
Hi, everybody.
We're so excited to have you on the show today. I can't even tell you. I wish you were here so I could give you a hug.
Oh, I know, that would have been great.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, it would have been so much fun to meet in person. Maybe one day we can at one of the conferences or something, do a live show.
Do a live show. Well, it was awesome because the first and only time that I think I've met you live was at the QuickBooks Connect showdown last year. And you said, hey, Liz, and I was like, huh?
Yeah, you were both hosting it. And you had, I can't remember the name of the drink that you had there. There was some kind of tequila in it, though.
The Show Glow.
The Show Glow. Yeah, that would be fun.
And I'm wearing my shirt from that event.
Yeah.
I have that shirt on today.
It had some kind of a lot of tequila in it.
It did have a lot of tequila in it.
Yeah. There was a recommendation that we had put one shot in. And there was somebody who said, well, I think we need two. And but that was fun. It was super fun.
Yeah. Well, I'll be at QB Connect again this fall. So hopefully I'll see both of you again and maybe even some of our viewers.
Definitely, because, as we're going to be going through this episode right now, we're going to be talking about why they need to come over and see you.
Yeah.
Why do they need to connect? Well, we're going to walk through some of those scenarios as to the reasons.
Cool. Well, let me give you an introduction about myself and kind of how Chronobooks got started. So it was a couple of years ago, I was working for a company that does revenue recognition, mostly for QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. And so I just kept hearing from, bookkeepers, accountants, CFOs, controllers, why doesn't QBO have a backup? Why can't I restore it? And, why can't I copy it, make a sandbox if I want to? So that's kind of how Chronobooks got started in 2016 was when I first started working on it. And then 2017, in June was when it first launched to the App Center. And here we are, 2 years old already.
I remember when you launched. I remember it. Yeah. I think that, Liz, you and I were talking about it.
Yes, and well, at the time, so Murph had a
First Look article.
First Look article, and it wasn't even live yet. It was just more of a, hey, this is coming. You couldn't even really do anything with it yet. And so he was just kind of putting in chat that he remembers the beginning.
Yeah, I think Murph was actually one of maybe even the very first person, within the accounting community that I showed it to after it was made. So
he's kind of like the mega all-star. So you started off at the top, dude.
Yeah.
That's the truth, for sure. Well, we're certainly happy that you're here.
We are. We're definitely happy that we have a tool to be able to make these backups that we need. Mm-hmm. So the agenda today, we're going to go through the best practices for safeguarding your data, and then we're going to do a toast. And then Heather and I did a really cool thing this month, so I can't wait to share with you what that was. It was really fun. And then to talk about upcoming episodes. So let's get started. So Heather?
Yes.
So best practices to safeguard your QBO data. So that's one of the things that we're going to be focusing on today.
That is absolutely what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about who actually owns the data. So we're going to talk about when we're signing up for cloud services, do we understand the terms of service? Are we, who really owns that data? And, understanding kind of the relationship between our client and the firm and the apps that we're using. How does that all work?
It's pretty messy. So if we stop and we kind of consider, this is a whole new concept of data ownership. So I think that there used to be a whole bunch of preconceived notions of data ownership, but now it's, of course, because of legal action, that's whenever you have to start saying, okay, here's the actual rules. And one of the things that we're in right now is are those rules enough? But, what we've got is this whole breakdown of data ownership whenever you've got data that sometimes is being designed by machine learning and artificial intelligence. So that adds a whole other layer of complexity. And you've got the Cloud Act that was in 2018.
Right.
That was created based on the scenario of who has ownership of the data, and if there's an issue, whose responsibility is it to answer for that?
Right.
So if you think about the complexity of it, this is my comparison, let's break it down kind of scenario. So if you think about why is it so complex, this idea of data ownership, it's the same as if you say, I'm going to take my car to the auto mechanic. And whenever I take it to the auto mechanic, I'm going to have somebody there who's going to service my oil and is going to maybe even change my tires, which might be similar to our bookkeeper entering in the bank feeds and reconciling the books. And then you have this whole idea of, well, then there's year-end review, or there's inspections that come annually for these vehicles. And then where are these services being performed? So in the scenario with a car, you've got the service station that you've got to go into. And in the scenario with QuickBooks, you've got, the actual data software itself is the storage place for all of that. And then you've also got the piece of it where everybody's contributing and everybody's inputting data so that everybody has a little bit of ownership in it. But then you've ultimately got the owner of the car, the owner of the business. And so you can see how it gets really messy really quick.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think, ultimately, you would think that where the data is stored would be that would be who actually owns the data. Because if you're thinking in a physical terms, that's on a computer somewhere, whoever owns that computer kind of owns the data that's on it. So we get into issues like licensing and things like that. So one of the things that you and I did together was we went through the Intuit Terms of Service Agreement. And because we were curious about, okay, well, who owns the data? Ultimately, when I reached out to Intuit, what they told me was really the client, if it comes down to it, the client actually owns the data. So we can do, we do the work as accountants. And this happens very rarely, but if a client has their data on the platform, that's ultimately kind of the stance that they have, is that the client would actually own that data. So,
which makes sense, but you've got all of these different contributors. So when we're talking about, some of these, the bank feeds and how those things get brought in, whenever we're talking about this artificial intelligence layer, there's there's some things that are happening that are because of the result of connecting these different applications.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really cool conversation to have. And, you know, when we're talking about it, it's like, how are we protecting ourselves? And so as accountants, do we have engagement letters that actually cover maybe some of our terms and conditions and maybe some of our own privacy policies? And then you looked up, Heather, this is the iTunes terms and conditions whenever you're connecting to their apps.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No. I think that you were going to share the thing that I was thinking.
I was. So as I mentioned, Liz and I actually went through and looked at the terms of service, the Intuit terms of service for QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Online Accountant, and we just noted a couple of things. And we're only going to touch on a couple of things in here, but one of the things that Liz and I talked about is that if I have read the terms of service, it's been a really long time. And I feel like that's something that, whenever we're signing up for any web-based application, we need to read the terms of service and understand it to make sure that we're comfortable with it, right? So I think a lot of us, we're just, we look at something like, oh, this is a great app, and we go ahead and we say, yes, I want to sign up. And maybe we don't do our due diligence and actually read the terms of service. So in regards to what we're talking about as far as ownership of template, a couple of things that we found was talking about your personal information. So your personal information, one of the things that we found that kind of raised our eyebrows, and we're like, okay, do we really understand what this means is, it says we give Intuit permission to combine information we enter or upload for services with that of other users. So really, when we're putting information into QuickBooks Online, we're kind of giving them ownership of our data in that sense, right? So we're giving them ownership to use that data so that they can aggregate it to provide additional services and promotions and things like that. So we're agreeing to that when we sign up. It also, something that's really important to understand is that we're responsible for the content. So we're responsible for our data. If something goes wrong, I'm going to tell a story that is probably going to make people want to curl up and go, oh my gosh. Earlier in August, that we're responsible for that data, and if something happens to it, really we're the ones that are responsible. Intuit is not responsible for loss of data. That's up to us. So if you're using third-party apps that actually can remove data, or even using tools within QuickBooks that manipulate data, and you make a mistake, guess what? That's on you, not on Intuit. So that's what the terms of service say. So you also, if you're writing content, so for example, say you go out onto the community and you write an article or you give feedback to somebody, you're granting a license, a worldwide royalty-free, non-exclusive license to host and use any of that content provided through the services.
Which, and that's that whole thing whenever we're looking at industry KPIs, how are we doing and benchmarking ourselves against other industries? That's part of what that data is being used for.
Definitely. It is. And I mean, that's really, it sounds scary, but it's really not, because what they're doing is they're taking the data to aggregate it so that we can see benchmark information, so that they can understand how the industry that we've selected when we're setting up a QuickBooks Online company, what are the features that are most often used and how are others in your industry using it? And that's really helpful to small business owners, right? Maybe small business owners that are just getting started don't really understand the workflows they should be using, and that's the type of information they're collecting.
Yep.
So, and then here you must provide all required and appropriate warnings, right? So it's saying that, if you are doing things, and I'm going to tell you about my scary moment later, but you got to read the little warnings that come up and really take heed, because if you push the wrong buttons, you can definitely end up with an issue. So just some other things, they use the information basically to help service the customer, to help identify new services that they may be offering to their customers. So if they identify a need through the use of the use of QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Online Accountant, that would help them to understand a new service offering that they might do. So these are just some things that that we kind of noted as we were going through the terms of service agreement, you know, that you may or may not have noticed yourself. So pretty interesting stuff.
It is. And if you go back to one of the first sections that's highlighted, you know, it says that we're responsible for making our own backup. So right there in blue, so that, or in pink too, so that archive your content frequently. Well, if you go, how? Whenever we're talking about an online platform, that's where, you know, there's some little hearts around Chronobooks, and, you know, and Chronobooks is the way that we can make that archive. And you have a really cool story too, Heather.
I do have a cool story. So I'm trying to decide when the best time to tell my story is. I don't, is this a good time for my story?
I kind of love your story, and I think that, I mean, it
now?
Whenever.
Okay, so I'm going to tell my story. And so last month, I was working on a client migration. So they wanted to take a couple of QuickBooks Online companies and merge them into one QuickBooks Online company. So I created the new QuickBooks Online company, and I imported the chart of accounts. And that was the only thing I had done in the company as soon as I created it. And I looked at the chart of accounts. I said, oh, I want to change this one thing. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to purge the company, and then I'll re-import it. I hadn't done anything else in the company. So I don't know if you guys know, but there's a way to purge your company. If you've taken the advanced certification, then you know about that because we've taught it. But there's kind of a hidden backdoor functionality in QBO that allows you to purge your data within 60 days of the creation of the QuickBooks Online company. So that's the tool that I was using. Well, I was logged into the client through my QuickBooks Online account, and I did the purge company. And all of a sudden, when I hit, you know, what it does, it says, are you sure you want to purge this company? It makes you type yes, and then you click yes. And so I typed yes, I clicked yes, and all of a sudden, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, I know it's happened to me a few times, it kicked me out of the client's QuickBooks Online company. I was back in, you know, my firm in the QuickBooks Online accountant area. And what had happened was it purged my client's data. It also purged my books. Like all of my Satterley training and consulting data, poof, gone. And I remember looking at the screen, and I was like, I just had this,
like,
what?
Not in your stomach.
And I'm like clicking back into the client's company, and I'm like, nothing's there. And then I'm clicking back into my company, and nothing's there. And I'm like, what? And then I remembered that I use Chronobooks. And before I completely went into a nervous breakdown, I logged into my Chronobooks account, and sure enough, there was my data sitting there. And all I had to do was restore it back in, and everything came back in. I mean, there was a little bit of cleanup that I had to do. But man, if I had not had Chronobooks backing up my data, I would be over there in the corner in my office still sobbing, like for an entire month. It was like forever, like all of my data was just gone. And you know, what I have heard is that if you do lose your data, that, you know, Intuit does back up their data on their servers perpetually. So it's always backed up. And so there's a possibility that I could have gone up the tiers of support and have them, you know, had them find my my data and fill it back into my books. But I didn't have to do that. Like, I didn't have to do that. I was still in control because I had Chronobooks. So I've always had Chronobooks for my clients that I work with on a monthly basis, but now I have Chronobooks for every single company that is in my realm. Like after that happened, every company that I have access to in my firm is on Chronobooks, because, you know, I honestly thought this will never happen to me, but I had it because, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, I wonder here with the people that are our audience today, who in here has used the Purge My Company feature?
I think can they raise their hand?
Or even just put it in chat. It's like, just in chat, have you used it?
Yeah. It looks like 3 have raised their hands.
So so there's a couple of yeses there.
No, there's 5.
So Peggy says yes, and Amanda says yes, and Patty says yes, and Les says yes.
So what I learned from this, because I did call support because I was like, somebody needed to know that this happened to me. And what they told me, and I didn't know, and I mean, Liz, you know, I know QuickBooks Online and accountant pretty well, was what I didn't know was that it is not a best practice to use that purge company when you're logged in as an accountant user. And the reason for that is because what had happened to me and what can happen to others is that there's a cache, right? We know about the cache, we know we have to clear our cookies and things like that. So what happens is sometimes when you're working in your client's QuickBooks Online, it'll cache back to your realm, like to your firm, to your company ID. And so that's what happened to me is when I put in the purge data, it cached back to my company rather than the client's company. What I can't understand is why it purged the client's company too. Like it did both. I don't know if somehow it refreshed or if there was like a surge or something.
Well, or an accidental.
So the best practice is to create a company administrative user in your client's company, log out of QuickBooks Online Accountant, log in as the company administrator user that's not an accountant user, and then do the purge from there. And that way there's absolutely no possibility, because you're not logged into QBOA, that can happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and the alternate way that they suggest you can do a purge is to re-import a blank desktop file.
Exactly. So yeah. I've done that too. Yep. So
a hard lesson though. Hard lesson.
Yeah, it was a hard lesson. And Arlie's saying, best use is to open a company into a separate window, like open on a separate browser. But I would say just don't log in as the accountant user. That is definitely a best practice. Speaking from personal experience, you don't want to do that. So, and Nate, that's why, I mean, I would hug you anyway, but that's why I'm here, because I would give you a big hug, a big squeeze, because your product saved my sanity. So thank you.
I'm so glad we were able to bail you out there.
Yeah.
Definitely. So moving on, Heather.
Let me stop my share and you can go back to the deck, right? Was that not the plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I just was obvious.
Murph just brought up a great point. Said, as he wrote 8 months ago, what would you do if a trusted employee decided to start destroying the file? If you didn't have Chronobooks, you'd be in trouble, right? So now we have
another example of a bad day.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were talking about, what Intuit's doing to protect themselves, and we kind of highlighted, what are you doing to protect yourself? Maybe that's one of those questions that you want to ask yourself, because of just the way that the internet is evolving, that we now need to kind of consider these things.
Right.
So revisit and revise your legal documents. Make sure that you're going and looking at, Heather, you were sharing earlier the CPA requirement.
I meant to share that out. Sorry. I did. I found a PDF document from the AICPA that basically gives CPA firms, it's a privacy checklist. And I'm going to copy and paste it into the chat. And then you guys can take a peek at that. But basically, let me see, everybody wants that. Basically, it kind of gives you the guidelines of what is expected of a CPA firm as far as privacy and as far as, relating your privacy policy to your customers. So,
and I just posted it. So, you did too? I was trying to let you talk.
I was doing both. I was multitasking. I can talk and click at the same time. It's a skill I have.
I know. Sometimes I can't.
Sometimes I can't too. And then revisit your insurance coverage. So do you have a cybersecurity rider on your insurance policy? That's really important when you're working in the cloud, right? So make sure that you're having that conversation with your insurance agent. Revisit your legal documents frequently. So do you address internet security and security of data in your engagement letters, your non-disclosure? Make sure you're looking at intellectual property. Do you have processes that are specific to you that make you an amazing firm that maybe you don't want people to exploit? All of that stuff you should really be thinking about, protecting yourself through legal documents and things like that.
That's a great point. As workflows become part of what a lot of firms do, like myself and you, it's like those are intellectual property. So you want to say that, are they buying that from you, or are they borrowing those ideas from you? So
right.
Revisit.
But if you don't have any document, then you don't have any protection at all.
Right? And Brad on Facebook, he made a comment that he said it needs to be signed. So if you're creating these documents and you're sending them over to your client and they're not ever signing them, well, that's a fail. So definitely you need a signature.
Yeah, that's not an executed document.
Right, not legal. So okay, so back up.
And I'm going to say back up your data using Chronobooks. Like that should be on your list. And Nate, it's $5 a month per client for pro advisors, right?
Yeah, and pro advisors get their first company backed up for free, even if it's not their own firm. So
you saved my butt for free. Thank you.
Yeah.
What a great testimonial.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so this next slide feels very appropriate. Oh, it's the sad Heather day. So why do I need to back up my QBO data?
Because you could be like Heather.
So this could have been like the Eeyore picture where it's like, oh, it's a sad day. But then it was okay. We found the tail.
It was okay. We did. It was all good.
So with that being said, it's that time.
It is that time. We have a fun one too. Like we're actually going to do shots.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up there. This is a little crazy. So we've never had shots on the show before, which I don't know if that's because we've never had a millennial on the show before. I don't know. Anyway, I guess it's not really true. We've had millennials on the show before. But anyway, so it's shots day.
Yes.
It's not just one shot. It's 2 shots. So I want to share my shots. So I've got my whiskey in my nice drink cups, my Jack cups, and then my pickle. And
I've got mine here. And look, does everybody see the Appy Hour shot glass?
I love that Appy Hour shot glass.
Some lucky people at Accountex got some shot glasses, and we'll be bringing some with us to QuickBooks Connect too.
We're getting some comments that Diane said.
Yeah, you both said you had never had a pickleback before, right?
I've never had a pickleback. This is my.
So the idea behind it is the pickle juice, the pickle brine, is supposed to like neutralize the whiskey.
Well, it's because of you that we're willing to try this, and I actually like pickles.
And we all have to do it at once, right?
Okay.
Yeah, the whiskey first, and then the.
Okay, I was about to ask.
So we're gonna do the whiskey first.
Yeah, I've got a toast for us.
Oh, yay!
We have a toast?
Yep.
Okay.
Don't get caught in a pickle. Make a backup.
I love it. All right.
Okay, here we go.
Bottoms up. Ready?
Oh.
All right. I think I need the neutral.
Hey.
All right.
Okay, that actually does work.
Yeah, it does. It kind of distracts you. It's like the whiskey starts out kind of harsh, but then the pickle juice just takes you off guard. And
I like pickle juice. I think I drank pickle juice as a kid. Like I was one of those kids that like all the pickles would be gone, and I'd be like, all right.
It's dill pickle. Come on, Liz, just do it. I did it.
Nate, Shaylin's saying that you have obviously done this more than one time.
Yeah, a few times. I've had a couple of picklebacks in my day.
All right.
So Christine's saying, hey, before we fall out of our chairs, where do we sign up for Chronobooks? So we're going to get there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, Nate, you just want to take over because here's some Chronobooks information, but let's just pass this over to you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Awesome sauce.
Okay, so now while you're getting that ready, I had to go ahead and just put them together to see what would happen. And I'm not sure about the color, but I have to try it anyway. There is something about the pickle juice that cuts the whiskey.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Wow, I like it.
Yeah, you know, I've been to, one time I went to a place that had a bunch of different types of pickled juices with different like fruits and infused into them, and then you could kind of mix and match the pickle juice and the whiskey. It was interesting. Cool. Well, let's get started with our demo here. Can you guys see my screen? Does it look all right?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So, you know, you made that point earlier about how when kind of moving into the cloud, we have to think about things in a new way, how we manage our data. And that's really what Chronobooks was intended to do. You know, I saw that there were a lot of people moving from desktop to online that expected to be able to, you know, manage their data in the same way that they did with QuickBooks Desktop with online. And so that was making backups, restoring, making copies. And so that's how Chronobooks came to be. But we'll start here just by logging in. We log in with our Intuit ID, even if we've never signed in with Chronobooks before. And it'll get us here to the home screen. So we'll jump to the companies page. And this is where we can manage all the different companies that we want to connect to Chronobooks. We can do as many as we want, as few as we want, some clients, not all clients. And I'll just add one right here. I don't think you can see the pop-up, but it's the Intuit add a company pop-up. I get one more added here, and then we'll back it up. Okay. So we're going to start by enabling backup for this company here, Chronobooks Demo US. The pricing for Pro Advisors is first company free and then $5 a month for each company after that. And Christine, you asked about how you sign up for it. The way to do that is if you use either this Contact Us link here on the bottom left or this chat bubble here to talk to me on the right. You can send us a support ticket and then we'll add you to the program. So we've got our first backup done here. We can start looking at the results. Here's kind of like the table form or the graph form, and then the table form below it. And you can see everything that Chronobooks captured in this backup. There's just a few of each transaction type. And if we scroll back, here are lists too. And then there's a couple of other things here. So things that are notable here are attachments. We back up the file behind them and the links to each attachment as well. And another thing here called other transaction. So if we jump over to this page that describes what Chronobooks backs up, at the bottom you'll see everything that we back up, all the common transaction types, lists, etc. But there are some things that we can't access through the QuickBooks Online API. And so those are these things listed here. Like things like recurring transactions, custom reports, bank feeds, bank recs can sometimes be a big one. But these are all just things that we can't access and we can't back up on your behalf. But there are some transactions that aren't normally accessible that we do back up through your general ledger. And those are payroll transactions and inventory adjustments. So that's what you see represented there under other transaction. Those are, I think that is an inventory adjustment that's being backed up like a journal entry. And so now that this first backup is done, Chronobooks is going to stay in constant communication with QuickBooks Online. So if I go make a change in QuickBooks Online, like I'm about to do, if I were to wait 5 to 10 minutes after this change, Intuit would notify Chronobooks that there's something new, and Chronobooks would go back up the new changes. So the short of that is that your Chronobooks backup is never more than 5 to 10 minutes out of date with your QuickBooks data.
Which that's a really good point. So Heather, whenever you lost your backup, it was up to date because it's continually making constant backups to Chronobooks.
That's right. It was completely up to date. So, and attachments are good. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's two big benefits from that. One is that you don't have to be logging in to Chronobooks to make backups. You know, if you were Heather and you hadn't considered that the purge might go wrong, you wouldn't have signed in and made any backups. But if you were using a traditional backup system and you were Heather, let's say you had done some work that morning, but you only have a backup from last night at 6 p.m. Whatever was scheduled or whenever the last time you logged in. So because Chronobooks stays in constant communication with QBO, you can also restore a company to any time since the first backup, right? So let's say that you hadn't logged into Chronobooks in a month and you did an import and put in a bunch of transactions, 1,000 transactions that shouldn't be there. You could use Chronobooks to do a restore to, the minute before you ran the import, and it would keep any data any change, any work that you had done before then. But for this company, it's only, we've only had this thing backed up for a few minutes, so we can't really go back very far. But we'll just restore it to when we first backed it up. And this, Heather, this would have saved you.
Right, that would have saved me. We talked about that.
Yeah,
yeah,
because the purge form just, asks you to put yes or something like that.
Right. So if I had put in the client's name, it wouldn't have let me purge it, and I would have known if there was, if it was in fact looking at my company's data. But I don't even think that's what it was. So.
Yeah, so this is going to get started, and basically the way Chronobooks works, it's like if you had, a person working in your QBO file, except it can work really fast. So it doesn't, a restore isn't like, let's wipe everything out and then put everything back in. It works with what you have, and it only makes the changes that it needs to. So you can see the results are coming in here now. These yellow bars are things that were unchanged. And these tiny green ones are things that have been recreated as part of the restore. So you can see the estimate, the invoice, the payment, and there should be a deposit showing up here in a minute too.
So Don had a question, are there any recommendations for backing up the things that aren't backed up, like QuickBooks payments? And I can say that all of my, received payments were still in there. When I restored, all the payments that were applied to the invoices were all there. And my payments account was still connected to the QuickBooks company. So I didn't have any interruption in that service. The only thing that would have been an issue is if I had a payment that was in transit, right? If I had a payment that was in transit, but even then it still would have been recorded, and then I would have had to make the deposit manually, I would guess, would be the only thing that would have been.
Yeah, like the scenario in which it, let's say you had a payment, an online payment that had been paid, and then you deleted it. If we will recreate the payment, and but it won't have those little, where you can see when it was viewed, when it was paid, those details specific to QuickBooks Online payments.
Right.
Okay, so our restore is done.
The other thing that happened, Nate, was my payroll. So I use full service payroll in my firm. That didn't get restored either, and that's because you don't have access to the QuickBooks payroll. But Intuit was able to help me with that. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
we do, we read them off of your GL. So if you restore a company, we can tell you like this payment was for a different amount, posted to different accounts, different date, that kind of thing. We can't change it for you.
Right.
If you copy a company, we'll just create those in the new company as a journal entry for you, so you can still have them represented.
Cool.
Okay, so yeah, we did the restore. I jumped back over into QBO and refreshed, and here's our estimate, invoice, and payment that we had just deleted.
Very cool.
Back from the dead.
Back from the dead.
Back from the dead.
Yeah, so that's a restore. We won't go through a whole copy today, but copy is similar to a restore, except you're going from one company to another and basically, you know, make a clone of a company into a new.
And you know, if I can like interject, one of the things that I like about this feature, the copy, is this is sometimes where I'll go in and I'll take my live data, my client's live data, I'll copy it, and then I'll post it into an empty QuickBooks company so that way I can test it. So sometimes this is where I take the data and see how it's going to react with an app before I actually go and connect the app to the live data. And then, you know, the other thing that I do is whenever I'm making the backup, so it's making that continual backup of all of the changes, but then I also do a full backup whenever I know that I'm going to be doing a bunch of changes. Or if I make a lot of edits to vendors or the chart of accounts, you know, I actually go in and make a full backup instead of just letting it do the periodic change.
Automatic. Yes, that's a good point. You know, you can always make a manual backup if we want. We think of it as kind of like we have 3 lines of defense. The first one is that you know, when you make a change, Intuit notifies us and we go back them up. The second is that every couple of hours we look for new changes, just in case Intuit, you know, something goes wrong, they stop sending those notifications. And then lastly, we do one full backup each day, kind of at a random time. But in addition to those things, you know, we don't think it's necessary, but you're always welcome to come in here and make a backup if you'd like, just to make sure you got everything.
Now, Nate, I know you can download your backup. What are you exactly downloading when you download your backup?
Yeah, so that's this local backup feature here. There's not a lot to show you, but I can tell you how it works. So basically you link your Dropbox or your Google Drive, and soon, you know, probably within the next week, we're going to be adding Box, OneDrive, and ShareFile to that list. And once you do that, you can schedule exports of your data into you know, one of those services. So what that looks like is there's basically CSV files, you know, customers.csv, invoices.csv, invoice lines.csv. Basically, there's, you know, 30 to 60 of those. And
your tables.
Yeah, it's basically like a table dump. Yeah.
Right.
But it also includes, you know, a full general ledger all in one place. I've even heard from some companies that are so big they can't even get a full GL out of QBO. But this will do that for you. And trial balances as well, and also all of your attachments. And
it'll get your attachments too. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
I didn't realize. Okay, that's cool.
That's actually a good best practice. I mean, that would be a good thing to do at the end of each year, right? Once you've completely closed out the books.
Yep, and you can schedule. You can't really schedule it annually, but you can schedule it monthly, weekly, or daily in Chronobooks.
Okay.
And it's pretty smart about, you know, it's not going to send over your attachments 100 times and eat up all your space. So it's smart about that.
So Camille's got a question, and she's asking, so once you make a backup, is there a way to check it against your QBO data file?
You know, that's a good question. There isn't with the restore. We've kind of been working towards this compare feature over here. You can see it's grayed out. And so that's kind of what we were thinking with that, you know, be able to compare your current books with a previous time. But we're still waiting on a couple of things with the QuickBooks API before we want to, you know, finish that off. So we see that eventually, but it's not in there yet.
Got it.
Yeah, and another thing about local backup that I want to mention that we're really excited about is that we're working on exporting to a format that works with QuickBooks Desktop, right? So basically you would always have a QuickBooks Desktop export on hand from, the previous night, previous week, whenever you want to schedule it. And we hope to have that done in the next couple of months.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm going to put up our poll. We do a poll every show asking if people would like you to reach out to them. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that poll. And if you folks that are on the call, if you'd like to have Nate reach out to you after the show to make sure you get set up and get all your clients backed up, I will certainly forward that on to him after we're done today. And you can also leave your email or your contact information or something in the Facebook group. And yeah, we can make sure that gets where it needs to go too.
And the other thing is, I don't know if we talked about price, but let's talk about price for a second, Heather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you are connecting it and your clients are going to be paying for it, it's $10 per QBO file. If you as the firm are going to be connecting it to your client's books, for us, it's half price. So it's $5 per client file. And so Les had asked earlier in the chat, he said, well, how do I get the $5 price? And you just let Chronobooks know. So down there in the chats, there's a little chat box down there. Yep, down there at the bottom. If you just say, I'm a pro advisor, then Chronobooks will adjust that monthly price for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's also, when we add you to our Pro Advisor program, you do get that free company and you get the discounted rate, but you also get access to a referral program. And so you can, if you don't want to be paying for your clients, you can still benefit from them using it by referring them, and you can earn referral rewards up to $50 per referral, and it's paid out over a couple of months as they get billed. But yeah, there's a lot of different relationships that people have with their clients, and so you can do that where you're just referring them. You can pay for it yourself and use it as a value add. You can pay for it yourself and mark it up for the customer, for the client. You're welcome to do any of those things.
Arlie has a question. What happens to things like HubDoc or CBank after you restore the file? So if you have apps connected to your QuickBooks company and you do a restore?
So, I can't answer that definitively for any given app because I don't know how they work, but I can tell you how Chronobooks works. And it's that, things that didn't get changed won't be affected at all as part of a restore. Things that were changed will be updated, but they'll still keep the same ID number. So your other app should be good with that, should accept updates. The one thing that other apps might get tripped up on is that, let's say you've got some transactions in there and the other apps know them by their ID numbers. Now you've deleted them, run a restore, and Chronobooks has recreated them. They have a new set of ID numbers. So your other app, I'm not sure how it would handle that. It might be able to figure it out. It might ask you to match things up. You'd have to consult with them.
Yeah, I had a little bit of that when I restored my company after my purge. I had a couple of, I had some Zaps set up. And so I had to go in and remap a little bit. Not a lot. Most of my apps were fine. But I did have to do a little bit of remapping. Christine also has a question. Do you have a mechanism in Chronobooks to send a link for referral? You had said there is something in there.
Yeah, there is. So once we add you to the program, there'll be another link right here under this billing tab that says Pro Advisor. And that's where you can manage, you can see how many people have clicked your referral link, how many people have signed up, what's owed to you, and even change your referral link if you want to customize it.
And she also wanted to know, is that linked back to your ProAdvisor subscription reward points? And I don't think any apps.
No, we don't have any connection to ProAdvisor rewards or into its billing. Our billing is completely separate.
That makes sense. So, one of the things too, whenever I'm connecting Chronobooks to my clients' books as the accountant user, whenever I go over there to the manage companies, that's where I would see all of my companies. If I connect a company directly to Chronobooks and I'm not part of that ongoing engagement for them, then they wouldn't have a list of companies. It would just be a direct connect. So that's one difference in setting it up as a ProAdvisor, is that you've got your list of companies all in one dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're connecting it, whenever you go to your QBOA, you would say firm apps instead of client apps. That way you'd be able to launch your Chronobooks as a firm user.
My old lady cat is getting a little bit angry at the little so, you're hissing and yowling. That's not me. It's not my stomach. It's Bella.
So
all right. Well, oh my gosh, what an amazing episode. This was awesome.
I agree. And so Nate, I'm going to say, if you want to look at the chat and make sure that we answered all of those questions, see if there's anything in there that you want to address. And then Heather and I will show a cool thing from this month.
Yes.
So I'm going to say.
Oh, okay. Somebody asked what the difference between a full backup and a complete backup is. Complete backups handle merges. If you've been doing a lot of merges, a complete backup is better. You should probably just go for complete anytime, unless your company is really, really large. Let's see.
Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and say, so here's the pricing, here's where to go, and then just let Nate know that you're a ProAdvisor, so you can get the $5 a month. And then Heather, we have the thing that we did this month that's super cool.
It was so cool. It was so cool. Do you have the picture?
I do. So let me pull it up. And I'm going to say, while I'm pulling that up, that one of the things that was a real treat is that I came and visited you.
You did. So yeah, Liz came to Rhode Island and she spent the weekend with me. And we had the best time. It was really, really special weekend. So thanks for coming to Rhode Island, Liz.
Thank you. I had a great time. And so I'm going to pull this up. I don't know that I have this. Do you have the video that I took of you?
It's somewhere on there. I don't have it. Okay. You have it, but that's cool. I got to drive it around Ocean Drive, which is a 10-mile drive all around the ocean. And so there's, I think on our Facebook page, if people wanted to watch that, Facebook Live, they could do that. And then we have one of you as well.
So, so it's sideways. So I don't
sideways. So we could just do that. But yeah. It was so fun. So the story is we were walking by, actually, I think Liz saw it first. So Liz, I was actually moving my daughter into college and Liz had seen, she said, there's this Batmobile. And I think that we need to rent it. And so we had gone out to dinner that night. And we had to walk by the Batmobile, and I said, yeah. And at first I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't commit to it because maybe we'll change our mind tomorrow. And then we walked by it, and I'm like, no, we have to do that. We have to drive that. So it was a manual transmission, and I haven't driven a manual transmission in a long time, but it was so fun.
I agree with that. I hadn't either. So I'd been been a few years.
Yeah.
For decades. So it was a moment of just trying to remember how to do it.
So, no, it was. And I mean, it was super fun. So we had a great time. And it was, so you can watch videos of us. I think there is a YouTube, or not a YouTube, did you do a Twitter live of me? I think you did.
I did. That's why it's not on my phone. It's on Facebook Live. That's why.
Twitter. So you'd have to go look at Liz's Twitter, and then you can see Liz driving the Batmobile on our Facebook page.
And then inside of our Happy Hour page is where I posted the video of you driving it. So it's
okay, cool.
Yeah. So that was a Facebook Live as well.
Absolutely.
No wonder I don't have the video, so it's in there. I was
All
looking
right.
earlier.
Do you want to head through the rest of our kind of housekeeping slides? If you are new to the show, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure that you visit our webpage, our website, qbhappyhour.com. That's where you can view the past episodes. We have now a lot of episodes. I don't even know that. I think we have 56 videos on our YouTube channel now.
That's great. So please like some of that
in a year. We also have our blog. So we usually have a couple blog posts every month. And then we also have the bar book where you can find the drink recipes and information about our sponsors. So thank you so much. Make sure that you visit our sponsor to Chronobooks website, and I will definitely get your information over to Nate for those of you that are interested in having him reach out to you. So thank you so much, Nate, for joining us today. This is awesome. I also want to say a thank you to our brewery level sponsor, ADP. They help make all of this possible. So thank you guys for your support and bringing Happy Hour to all of our viewers.
That's great. Yep.
Yeah.
Very, very thankful to you, Nate, for opening up Chronobooks and showing us around and giving us a place to be able to say, if there is a rainy cloud day, we've got a tool to save us. So
thank you guys so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I feel like I need to go get some post-drinking food, like a taco truck or something now.
And we'll send you an Happy Hour shot glass. I'll put one.
Oh, great! Yeah.
Yeah, I'll actually send you a couple. That way you can drink Happy Hour shots with a friend.
Yeah, one for the whiskey and one for the pickle juice.
One for the pickle juice. That's right. You need two for that. Absolutely.
Okay, and I'm gonna have to say everybody's gonna have to try the pickle juice. So whiskey and pickle juice. It does actually cut it. So.
Awesome.
And I like whiskey. I'm a whiskey drinker anyway, so it's kind of fun. All right, well, I'll see everybody next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Oh, Camille says she wants a shot glass.
What's that?
I said Camille
has a. We've talked about putting those up on our website, so we'll have to think about that. Maybe we'll have our e-commerce person, wizard over there, set up an Happy Hour shot glass store. But we'll be bringing, so if you're going to QuickBooks Connect, we do bring them with us when we go to conferences. So awesome.
That's awesome.
Thanks,
yes.
everybody.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.